Charles Chucky Cope in here. Hashtag Hey Amanda. What side of the eye is the hurricane known as the dirty side? So we talk about the dirty side of the hurricane here on Tracking the Tropics, and Amanda's zooming right in on it. Port Fourchon here is where the landfall occurred, and there you see the quote-unquote dirty side of this system.
Yeah, so landfall was right about here. I'm going to put the X there. They experienced the first side of the eye wall, the outer ring of very heavy rain, but that's also where the very strongest maximum sustained winds are as well. Then it got really calm. In that area where you see no rain falling, there's also no winds right there as well. So the strongest part of the eye wall, the dirty side, if you will, is right here. That's where these winds are coming right on shore. So, you know, Port Fourchon got it really bad as the storm was moving through, but Grand Isle never got a break. They got those winds coming in and it never stopped. So they weren't in the eye itself. So they never got the calm conditions. They got continuously pounded with those onshore winds of 150 miles per hour. So that right there where you see the arrow, that's kind of the dirty side of the eye. That's where the strongest winds are, the heaviest rain. We get really, really small mesovortices, we call them. And that's where you can get those gusts even stronger than the maximum sustained winds.
Again, taking your questions here, everybody, in the Facebook Live comment section using hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyAmanda. We've got some questions coming in here. And again, my responsibility here is kind of fielding as many of the questions alongside our digital staff members, getting to as many of your questions from as many regions of the Northern Gulf Coast as we can, and then fielding those questions to our experts on stream, Amanda, Holley, everybody joining us here, everybody tracking the tropics. Meteorologist. Let's get to this one here from KTVE's Facebook page, and it comes in from Patty Mayo. Hashtag Hey JB. What about Monroe? What do we need to expect there in Monroe, Louisiana, Amanda?
Well, Monroe, Louisiana, again, much farther off to the north in Louisiana. So that's some good news. And you're going to be on the western side of it as it recurves. So back to the north and the east. And I'm going to pull up the track for you on the graphic so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. And you're going to be on the better side, if you will, there in Monroe, Louisiana. I do think that you could get some bouts of heavy rain, probably not a significant amount of rainfall to cause any significant flooding. You're really not going to be on the dirty side of the isolated tornado threat either. But I do think that you'll get some of those passing rain bands with gusty winds, maybe up to 40 to 50 miles per hour there in Monroe. But out of just looking at it here, you're not going to experience anything that you really haven't seen before, maybe with a severe thunderstorm.
I'm going to bring up this one because this one drives me crazy. Even when it's a regular, everyday, if it's a drizzle, this drives me crazy. So we're going to highlight this from Taz J from WKRG's Facebook page, hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyAmanda. Y'all need to be reminding these people to turn on headlights on when raining if they're out on the roads, signaling, making sure that your headlights are on, wipers, of course. We shouldn't have to remind people to turn on their wipers and their headlights, but as Taz they're noting. But here's the thing. At this stage, depending on where you are, Amanda, as far as the location of the system right now, you shouldn't be on the roads at all. If you're somewhere in this area, if you're pretty much anywhere here in the center of your screen, you need to be in a safe spot now, not in 5 minutes, but really right about now.
So south of I-10, I think, I don't know if it was Keith or Chris earlier said that, yeah, do not be on the roads because the rain is going to be so heavy that headlights really aren't going to help you all that much. And the wind is going to be dangerous to kind of move your car around. The New Orleans area, just to give you guys perspective, they are turning off their emergency services basically because those sustained winds are now above tropical storm force, and it is not safe for even the emergency personnel to be out on the road. So if it's not safe for them, it's definitely not safe for you.
We've just been given a heads up, and I believe this, so this is very, and pun not intended, but this is very fluid, this whole situation as far as accessing our crews in the field. Of course, we just had Keith Monahan on, who's Chief Meteorologist at KRK. He's in Baton Rouge. We've had Jack Royer, who's been on with us on Tracking the Tropics, a live report from New Orleans, Louisiana. Next up, I believe that we're going to have KXAN Chief Meteorologist David Yeomans. Now, the last time that we heard from David, he was in Houma, which is right there south of Thibodaux, northwest of Golden Meadow there. Amanda zooming in here on that area. That's where David is, and I believe that we're about 10 or so minutes away from David Yeomans joining us here, and we're going to see really what the conditions are like here. Now, it's very possible that David has moved. He's moved to a safer location, but as I think the last time we heard from David, he was going to be staying in Houma. So that's going to be coming up here next, everybody, on Track in the Tropics. We're going to do 10 minutes of taking your questions here, everybody, in our meteorologist Q&A, and then David Yeomans, KXAN Chief Meteorologist, with a live report coming up here next. Christina from WJTV's Facebook page, and hopefully I pronounced this correctly. What about Iuka, Mississippi, northern Mississippi?
So I'm going to pull that up on the screen here, and now I'm going to pull up the rainfall accumulation, because up in northern Mississippi, you're really going to be talking about not necessarily the wind speeds being an issue, but more of the heavy rain and the slow moving storm passing through. So maybe upwards of 6 inches, localized amounts of 10 inches, not out of the question for northern Mississippi there. But it's going to be the amount of rain that falls and how long those gusts are around your area to topple any trees. If you're in an area where you have a lot of power lines above ground and trees can topple over, you still might be dealing with those power outages. And one thing we haven't talked about very much, JB, is everyone that's watching right now, if you're watching from an area that is being impacted by Ida right now or in the next 24 hours, make sure you're charging your phone while you're watching us. Please.
Another thing,
keep it charged.
That I want to note, great point on charging phones. Also worth noting that Keith was out there and everyone saw his cellular signal start to drop there.
Yes.
This is sort of some of the infrastructure problems are now going to start to arise here as far as losing power, and then that knocking out power perhaps to cell phone towers in the area. Some cell phone towers might be powered by off-site power sources such as generators, but we anticipate there being a lot of power lines down, a lot of homes and businesses without power, and as a result of that, there's going to be a lot of cellular reliance that is going to drop significantly over the next couple of hours here as far as coastal Louisiana into coastal Mississippi. We're here to take your questions in a meteorologist Q&A using the hashtags on your screen, hashtag Hey Amanda, hashtag Hey JB. We're getting a lot of questions from Mississippi. A lot of questions from Mississippi. So we're going to take now some of these questions coming in from Mississippi. That's not to say that we're not focused completely on Louisiana. Louisiana is absolutely our focus here, but we're here to answer the questions as they come in from our Track in the Tropics audience using the hashtags here on your screen. So just interestingly enough, we've been getting a ton of questions about Mississippi. We're going to take those questions, but if you're joining us from elsewhere and you have a question, use a hashtag and we will try our very best to get to that region of the northern Gulf Coast. Let's get to
before you get to that question, JB, I just want to talk about something more imminent that just popped up here. We do have a tornado warning now in effect for portions of Alabama, Foley and Fairhope, including is it Daphne, Alabama? You would know, JB.
Yeah, Daphne, beautiful town.
Yeah. So within this rain band right here, this rain band capable of producing a tornado. It was probably a water spout that moved ashore and is staying on the ground. Probably moved ashore near Orange Beach, heading toward the Foley region and headed toward Fairhope and Daphne.
So I used to live in this area, so I know this area very, very well. Can we kind of zoom in here a little bit more and highlight some of the other communities here? Yeah, as far as Summerdale, Foley, Bayside, Fairhope. A lot of folks that live in Fairhope and all the way up to Daphne. Daphne right there on the other side of the bayway there of Mobile Bay. These are areas, Foley, a lot of people live in Foley. These are areas now really you have to heed these warnings, heed these advisors as they come in. When does this tornado warning, when does it expire?
Let's see. It goes all the way until 2:15. So this was, and I believe that's going to be 2:15 Eastern time.
Yeah.
And you guys are obviously in Central time there, so 1:15 Central time. And it was just issued, so it's more than likely that this is the area right
all the way
here.
All the way down to Orange Beach there.
Orange Beach is not included within this threat. It is going to be already to the north of the Orange Beach area and including the coastal areas. So Perdido Beach there, Josephine, you guys are in the clear. I believe right now that the threat is going to be in the Alberta area, headed toward Foley right now.
Yeah, this is the Mobile, Alabama market. Ed Bloodsworth, the great WKRG meteorologists that join us here, everybody on Track in the Tropics. They're likely on the air. No, they are without a doubt, with 100% certainty on the air right now. Let's get back to that question from Tara Hall, WJTV's Facebook page, #AJB. How about Laurel, Mississippi? What we'll do is we'll keep an eye on that tornado warning. We'll keep an eye on coastal Louisiana impacts, but we're going to continue to take your questions here. And Tara Hall here, Amanda, asking about Laurel, Mississippi.
So Laurel, Mississippi, just to give everyone an idea, is to the north of Hattiesburg. And you guys are probably going to see, I'm going to exit out of this tornado warning here and give you an idea of what you guys are going to see. But you guys, I would absolutely expect sustained tropical storm force winds in the Laurel, Mississippi area, and some very heavy rain. So you're going to be in that kind of zone where you're going to deal with the heavy rain as well as the potential for the flooding. I do think that, there's Laurel popping up on our map. I do think that you're going to see enough rain to get some of that flooding potential, so watch for that. And you're going to be on the right side, so watch for the isolated tornado. So just like what we saw with the isolated tornado that's popping up in southern Alabama, you can get that same threat. So make sure you have a way of staying weather aware and getting a warning if it's issued.
Again, we're moments away here, folks, from David Yeomans joining us here, everybody, on Tracking the Tropics. He's going to be live in Houma, as we understand it, really in an area that's seeing significant impacts here at this hour. And really the worst to come for David in Houma. So we're really hoping that he's in a safe spot. But our meteorologists, of course, they talk about the procedures that are in place. We talk about our parent company as far as Nexstar. Always 100% safety first. It's so important, of course, to have meteorologists to be able to document what's going on the ground, to help keep people safe and to help us understand what's going on with these systems. And really, there's safety. Safety is absolutely at the forefront of everyone's mind here as far as our meteorologists are going to be joining us. So a live report here coming up next from Houma, Louisiana. Let's get to Ashley McKissack, hey Amanda, #HeyJB from WKRG's Facebook page. What about Meridian, Mississippi? I remember Katrina, and it was rough. We lost power for at least a week back then.
Yeah, Meridian, you guys are, again, on the central section of Mississippi, but you're going to be on the eastern side as it passes by you, and you're going to be dealing with potentially those sustained tropical storm force winds for a brief period of time, especially into tomorrow morning. That isolated tornado threat absolutely exists as the center kind of passes by off to the north of you, and that isolated tornado threat really starts tonight, and as the first kind of rain bands move through your area, it's really just going to exist in those rain bands as they pass through. But certainly the tropical storm force winds, and if you get a lot of rain with some wind and trees topple, you could be dealing with some power outages as well.
I was noting a lot of comments coming in from Mississippi. Let's get to this next one here. It comes from John Kimball, WJTV's Facebook page, #HeyJB. Are there more worries than just tornadoes in central Mississippi?
Good question there. Yeah, we are talking about the flooding threat continuing to move far inland. So this rainfall accumulation graphic that you're looking at the center of your screen, this goes through Tuesday at 2 p.m. And just looking at the legend, you're going to potentially see some widespread swaths of 6 to 10 inches all the way in central Mississippi. And this is going to only be through Tuesday at 2 p.m. and that is going to cause some localized flooding. So have a way of getting warnings if a flood warning is issued or if a flash flood warning is issued for your area. Central, especially the eastern half of central Mississippi, certainly dealing with a flooding threat as well.
How about this one coming in here? We finally got some questions coming in from Louisiana. Norvie Frayne from WGNO's Facebook page, #HeyJB. What about Ponchatoula?
Ponchatoula.
Yeah, and let me
type that up here.
Yep, make sure that we have the exact what do you call it? The exact location, excuse me, here, so that we are talking about the right area. And yeah, that's south of Hammond. That's okay. South of Hammond, south of the interstate there, and just east of Baton Rouge, Amanda. North of New Orleans, east of Baton Rouge, kind of in that area between Baton Rouge and Slidell.
Yeah, so you're going to get some pretty strong wind gusts. I don't think you're going to see the sustained hurricane force winds, so that's above 75 miles per hour. But because you're kind of right on the bay there and that body of water, you're probably going to see some gusts maybe close to that hurricane force wind, upwards of the 60, maybe 70 mile per hour range. But you are going to be on the right side, the east side. So again, the isolated tornadoes. You're going to see a lot of rainfall now in the next 6 to 8 hours. A lot of rain coming down with some of those heavier bands. It's going to get a lot steadier within the next hour as well. And then the tropical storm force winds will stay sustained probably between now, probably starting any time between now and about 8 p.m. tonight.
We are going to have a live report coming here. Sully here asking, Sully Armit, hashtag AJB, any damage in Houma reported just yet. And again, a live report here coming up here. As far as signal quality, we expect and we hope there to be enough of a signal to bring you David Yeoman's live report from Houma. That's going to be coming up here. So stay tuned, Sully. That's coming up here in less than 5 minutes, as we understand it.
Can we talk about Houma for just a second?
Yeah, no,
though?
we can. So back to Sully's comment.
I do want to talk about Houma and just looking at the New Orleans radar for a second. I'm going to bring back the drawing tool. You know, we talk a lot about the eye wall, and that's this right here. The center of the storm, again, it's calm where that X is. This is the eye wall where the first circle is drawn. This is a secondary eye wall beginning to form. So Ida may have begun right before it made landfall in eye wall replacement cycle. So that's where it forms a secondary eye wall on the outer edges of the first eye wall. And we're really going to start to see some of those stronger wind gusts in that second eye wall, which you can see is just outside of the Houma area. So I'm really interested as well, JB, to hear from David in just a few minutes.
Yeah, that's coming up here. Teresa Chapman, hashtag Hey JB. What about Baker, Louisiana, joining us from, I think, a Facebook page, one of our Facebook pages there in Louisiana.
It's
Baker,
just north of Baton Rouge.
Yep.
So we've talked about Baton Rouge a little bit here because, you know, you guys are going to be in the thick of it as we head into the evening hours tonight. And I'm going to bring back the cone because it's just a good idea of where the center of the storm is going to go. And because Baton Rouge and your area is going to be right in the center, this is what you can expect. It's going to be a Cat 1, Cat 2 moving through the Baton Rouge area during the evening hours tonight after dark. So 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., you're going to experience those hurricane force sustained winds, probably between the 75, maybe 80, 90 mile per hour range. Not out of the question. The really heavy rain moving through your area as well. So the worst for you is coming up after 8 p.m. tonight.
We are getting a signal now from KXAN Chief Meteorologist David Yeomans, who is in Houma. So that just came in here, and he's moments away from joining us. But I believe that we're able to actually, you know what? Let's just show it to you because this is the signal that we're going to be bringing in here momentarily. David there still on that parking garage in Houma. So you can see here just how gray and ominous the conditions are here. You can see the winds there off in the distance, actually right here next to my head here. You can see some of those trees blowing there. David's going to give us a live report here coming up here in just a few minutes, everybody, on tracking the tropics. So for all the folks there asking about Houma, that's coming up here next. And actually, that's our signals starting to come in here, folks. So that's coming up here. Let's get to Rhodey Sutton's comment here. Hashtag HeyJB asking about New Orleans, another area we're monitoring very closely at this hour, Amanda.
New Orleans is a very interesting area, again, with the ominous feeling of Katrina making landfall 16 years ago, and obviously all the damage that came out of New Orleans with that storm. I will say I don't think that we are going to see that kind of damage in the New Orleans area as we saw with Katrina. So that's hopefully a sigh of relief for some of you. But I just wanted to update what kind of winds we're seeing in New Orleans here. So right now, sustained into the tropical storm force range. 40 to 50 mile per hour sustained winds are ongoing in New Orleans. That's why emergency services have been suspended at this time. And I really don't anticipate them going back into action until later on this evening, maybe by midnight, because we could see these sustained tropical storm force winds for about 12 hours with the forward motion expected to slow down. Gusts are in the low 60s. And again, those will start to increase as well. Just looking at radar, those yellows and reds that you're starting to see kind of wrap through the area, that's where we're going to see some of those stronger gusts. And the center is going to get a little bit closer over the next few hours, and those winds will probably pick up a little bit as well.
And we're going to see if we can tap in now to our signal from Houma, from where David Yeomans, KXAN chief meteorologist, is standing. I see him off there in the distance. Let's see if we can bring in David now. And David, yeah, I think we have you. And what are the conditions like out there?
JB, hey guys, thanks for having me back. We are in Houma, where we've been posted up on this parking garage all morning, and we're finally starting to feel some of the outer eye wall effects. The eye itself is not far southeast of us, and it looks like it's beelining for our location. So guys, I do look forward to hopefully seeing some sunshine with you in a couple of hours as the eye moves over. You're seeing some wind gusts blow in the trees here. I just had my anemometer out. I clocked a 52 mile per hour gust. It's hard to get the strongest winds actually measured in your hand, of course, because you're not extended above the obstructions nearby. So I'll bet we've maybe had some 60, 65 mile per hour gusts. And you know, those are very strong winds for the average person. They're very difficult to stand up in. Behind me, you've even seen some, you know, it's not the pavement itself peeling up, but that's some sort of liner or some sort of patch on the parking lot, which earlier was flush and it looked correct. Now we're seeing that peeling up. We're seeing a couple over on this side starting to peel up as well as these east to west winds blow into Houma. I've been in touch with the lieutenant of the Houma Police Department. He said everything is still okay. They haven't had any distress calls quite yet, but they have had to prioritize calls, and they've let people know that who are staying behind to ride out the storm. That means basically, as he tells me, if it's not a real emergency that needs them right now, they're not going to come. And this storm will surely get to the point where they won't be able to come to any level of emergency. We also spoke with a couple next door to this parking garage in a big old cypress house, which has stood here since the 1930s. The owner was convinced that they're safe there because it's old construction with thick cypress trees. He was convinced that all he'll have to do is pick up a few branches in the morning. I did advise him to make sure that he has a plan in case things do go awry. He said he and his wife and his adorable silver lab dog do have a plan to go to the middle of their home in the hallway in an attached bathroom, put as many walls as they can between them and the outside storm. They've also got some water and flashlights in that room. But what are you guys seeing there on the radar? How far does it look like Houma is now from the worst of that inner eye wall? I know we've had a replacement cycle, so the worst of the storm may be kind of shifting through that eye wall.
Yeah, hey David, meteorologist Amanda Holley here. Really looking at that secondary eye wall starting to form. It's only about 10 miles from you, so you're probably going to start to feel some of those really strong gusts coming in. Out of curiosity, so you're on top of a parking garage here, it looks like. How far off the ground are you? Because as you know, as a meteorologist, the farther up you go, the faster those wind speeds get. Sure.
We're about 60 feet up from the ground. The elevation here in Houma is about 10 feet above sea level, which hopefully protects them from flooding. We are about 60 feet above that. You can see in the distance there some trees, which I know you can't see the ground, but they are starting to shed some leaves and shed some small branches. We're seeing some small tree debris being blown around. We haven't seen much more damage than that. We're able to have a good 360 panorama and survey what's going on around. As you heard the lieutenant say, we haven't had any distress calls. I don't see any down power lines. It does appear that all the stoplights I can see are indeed on. So no bad damage here yet in Houma, but I mean, you guys are watching the satellite and radar just like I am. It looks like that thing is just beelining for us. And you also know how quickly things can change once that eye wall's true winds arrive.
David, JB Buno here with you, and let me ask you this question. Now we're going to have a weakening pattern occur here with all of this land interaction here, but will there be, how much weakening in your estimation do you believe that there will be, or can there be, between Port Fourchon, that landfall event occurring in the last hour, and where you are in Houma?
Sure, you know, I don't think we'll get a lot of weakening, maybe 10, 20 miles off the miles per hour off the peak storm winds. South of this location, it's really just all what we call brown ocean. It's not the true ocean, but it's so swampy, the storm can basically think it's still over the ocean and maintain its intensity a little bit better than if it hit a hard coastline like you guys have in Tampa or like we have in the middle or upper Texas coast. This is a real diffuse coastline. So kind of like the Everglades, when a hurricane moves over them, the storm can actually maintain itself, or at least maintain itself longer than it otherwise would. Friction, of course, is the enemy of the hurricane's wind. So the more friction you've got, meaning homes, big trees, buildings, to slow down the large-scale winds that are trying to blow in here, the more successful they'll be in doing so. But, you know, between us and the Gulf of Mexico, there's really just not much, guys. It's kind of a flat swamp. So here in Houma, we've got some buildings to break up the wind a little bit, but we're really kind of the last line of defense before you go down toward the Gulf. What we're seeing right now is kind of a little bit of a lull. I mean, a couple minutes ago, it was much more intense out here than this. We must be in between the rain bands. There's a really interesting effect when the rain bands come over us, which is that the falling rain and the sinking air in that rain band actually pulls some of the stronger storm winds down from above the ground to the surface. So in between the rain bands, when we're not getting as much sinking air and rain falling, some of those strongest winds stay just a few hundred feet above my head. So next rain band, I'm sure, is imminent, and these will be getting stronger and stronger and stronger as we wait for the eye wall.
Yeah, that secondary eye wall that's really starting to form again, just about 10 miles away from you, David. You know, do you have a place to be protected from any flying debris? You know, you're up 65 feet in the air. There's trees around. You know, branches are probably going to be breaking loose, and any of the debris from any of the buildings that are around you. Where are you going to go when things get really dicey?
Sure. So this building is taller than most everything around us, except for a couple of government concrete structures, which are a couple blocks away, including the hospital. So we're not too worried about flying debris up this high. Now, with that said, of course, when the worst of the hurricane kicks in, I will not be standing out here. We'll go down a level or two in the parking garage where we can actually shelter behind a concrete wall. But, you know, as for the structure itself, even with these 60+ mile an hour gusts, it's rock solid. I was trying to feel for any movement, any vibration. I don't know if you guys can see right here on the pylon, these little white things and the brown poles sticking up out of this. This is reinforced concrete, rebar, and it's coming out of every single one of these pilings all around this parking garage. So we do feel quite safe, quite secure where we are. Of course, when the worst of the storm hits, we will not be this exposed.
Do you expect to go outside when the eye moves over you? I'm really curious to see some reports at that point, because you should see the sunshine.
Yeah, you know, I've never experienced a daytime eye passage. I've been in the eye of a few storms at night, but hoping to get a suntan for a little bit. No, we're hoping that the residents here, of course, aren't fooled by the eye. Sometimes if they're not watching radar or satellite, or if they're less familiar with how a hurricane works, they might wander out. Sure, you might wander out regardless just to see the spectacle, but they might wander out and start cleaning up. Maybe they'll wander away and try to go find gas or a store or something, and then you can get caught in the back end of that eye wall. So if anybody's watching from around this area, it's very crucial that we stay indoors, or at least on your porch when you go out to see the sunshine as the eye passes over, because you will need to go back into your shelter very, very quickly after that.
David joining us, everybody, from Houma, Louisiana. Hey, David, we know you've been on Track in the Tropics so many times. We know how prepared you are and how seriously, you know, you take storm coverage, whether you're in studio or whether you're out in the field like you are right now. David, I know that meteorologists, they all have tricks of the trade as far as how you approach a storm, and little things, whether it's from the clothes that you're wearing or the gear that you carry around. What are you doing as far as staying safe, and what are you doing? What are some of the tricks of the trade that people might otherwise not know about when it comes to how you approach tackling these storms and being in the wind gusts and the rain that you're in right now?
Yeah, and it's kind of an odd position, right? Because we're in an area that's under a mandatory evacuation, and while there's no penalty for residents staying, that does mean that the first responders won't come and save you if you need saving. So we're in the odd position of going into that while everybody else we're encouraging to get out of that, and we recognize that. But the key is to not getting ourselves in trouble, and so as not to put more first responders in trouble, therefore getting gas before the storm, because soon thereafter all gas stations shut down or lose power. Having plenty of food, snacks, and water, enough for you and your crew, and ideally enough to give out to residents or people that you come across who might be in trouble, okay? Also, of course, you know, staying dry best you can. I don't think that's possible in a hurricane, no matter how many waterproof layers or rain boots you wear. But, you know, it's just getting to feel the power, JB and Amanda, of something you've studied your whole life. For meteorologists, it's experiencing a hurricane is not quite like it is for the homeowners, you know?
David, before we let you go, you've been helping us so much and helping our viewers so much as far as telling us what it's like out there in Houma, Louisiana. The 2 o'clock advisory, Amanda, just came in here a moment ago, so we can help David here as far as providing him here with the very latest. So, David, the 2 o'clock advisory from the National Hurricane Center just dropped, and Amanda's got it here for you. Amanda, what are we seeing here as far as latest? Any changes that are noteworthy here for where David is as far as location?
Absolutely no changes, David. So we haven't seen those maximum sustained winds drop. They're still at 150. The pressure is still at 930 millibars as well. You were talking about that area in southern Louisiana just being completely marshy. So it's still picking up on the extra warm waters in all of those marshes. And yeah, you can expect those winds to really start to pick up probably, I'd say, David, within the next 45 minutes in that outer rain band.
Okay, that's really interesting to know. And as you said, the brown ocean coming to fruition with sustaining its intensity even after landfall. I do wonder, what that's going to mean for folks farther down toward the coast than I am. There are a couple small communities where we're hearing that 20 or 30 people have stayed behind. We've seen fixed cameras, whether they be from hurricane chasers who affix a camera to a pole and then get out, or from the Department of Transportation, showing that the ocean has indeed overtaken some of those really small towns. The winds are whipping, so everybody is in our thoughts this afternoon, especially those a little bit closer to the coast than we are. And we're also thinking, guys, of the oil refineries, aside from the offshore platforms, the onshore tank storage, the refineries, the petrochemical plants, the nuclear power plant on the southwest side of New Orleans. We're hoping that this does not turn into an ecological disaster, in addition to, of course, the toll that a normal high-end Category 4 hurricane would take.
KXAN Chief Meteorologist David Yeomans on assignment in Houma, Louisiana. David, we can see that the wind gusts really picking up there. Before we let you go, really quickly, just what's your plan for the next 90 or so minutes, next couple of hours? A lot of viewers out there, of course, preaching safety, just wanting you to be safe out there.
Absolutely, and we will be smart once the worst of the storm rolls in. For now, the visibility is actually remarkably good, considering how close we are to that outer eye wall edge. I can even see, I don't know if you can see the clouds, Frank, but man, these clouds are moving. I know it's kind of hard to distinguish individual clouds inside of the gray blob that is a hurricane, but man, the winds 1,000 feet above me must be twice as strong as they are down here at the ground. So as some of those start to translate down to the ground, as some of those start to mix down to where we are, we're gonna drop off the roof. There you go. It's like I wished for it or something. We're going to drop off the roof here pretty soon, go down to a slightly lower level where we will be sheltered by some concrete sides of the parking garage and also not exposed to any airborne debris should it be lofted as high as we are. JB, Amanda, thank you guys so much. You guys are doing great work there in Tampa.
No, likewise, David. We really appreciate you joining us. Stay safe. From all of the commenters, the comment section just really lighting up.
Look. Wait.
Yeah, we're with you.
You got me, JB, still? It was that power pole right here, right in front of the teal and white building, Frank. We just saw a power flash right here, right in front of the teal and white building. That power line right in front of it. There are two. There's one on the left side. We just heard a loud buzzing noise. I saw the power pole move and a large flash of electricity come from the pole. So it looks like we still have power on that street light over to the left. This is a sign that the winds are starting to pick up. Some tree limbs could be hitting the power lines, or the power poles themselves may be under enough stress to start causing some power flashes. But that sound, that look, this is not a good sign here as things start to pick up.
David, we'll continue to monitor your camera feed here, and perhaps we'll try to tap in if there's any additional moments and in the coverage here of Ida that we can tap into here, but we'll let you get going and assess the situation. And of course, from all of the commenters here, a lot of the viewers joining us, be safe out there, and thank you for all that you're doing, and thanks for spending another part of your afternoon with us.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, back here, everybody here live, everybody on track in the tropics. David Yeomans, one of the best, really, as far as being out in the storms. We featured him and some of his work last year here on tracking the tropics, and yeah, the wind speed's really picking up there now in Houma. Let's just kind of reset here for you folks and just remind you that we're talking about life-threatening conditions here. So some portions here of the coastal Louisiana area here are seeing moderate to somewhat severe impacts from Hurricane Ida, but some of the areas now that they're going to be seeing, some of the areas that Amanda has been noting here on satellite and on radar, some of the areas here are particularly severe to the point where we're getting to life-threatening conditions here. So while some folks in perhaps coastal Mississippi or even western Louisiana might be looking outside their window and saying, oh, it's not so bad, don't worry about it, there's nothing to worry about, quite frankly, you don't know exactly what is to come here unless you're, of course, paying attention to the models like we are. So, Amanda, where are we as far as the worst of this system now hitting coastal Louisiana?
Yeah, that's a great question, JB. So we were just talking to David. He's in Houma, which you can see there on your screen. That is just to the southwest of New Orleans. New Orleans really starting to see some of that sustained heavy rainfall, some of those gusts well into tropical storm force range, closer to hurricane force range at this point. But the strongest winds are really still going to be near the eye wall and on the northern section of it. So I'm gonna zoom in, and Grand Isle is still right now, they have not gotten a break. There it is, just popped up on your screen. They're still getting those sustained winds over 100 miles per hour, and that's really where the strongest section of the storm is at this point. I'll just kind of circle it on the screen, and you can see this section is what I'm most worried about right now.
Again, taking your questions, see at the bottom of your screen there, a meteorologist Q&A. Taking your questions here live. We're also monitoring David's shot here. David Yeomans, that's his camera shot, talking about that, the flash that he saw related to the power line here. And there you see, that's so, if you've been in storm coverage, and Amanda knows from being in storm coverage, what we're seeing now, the black that's coming over, that's the rain gear for the camera that is whipping around the side of the camera lens and whipping in front of the camera here. So that's currently what we're seeing here behind Amanda and I. But back here to, again, the graphics, we're going to take some of the questions that we have now coming in the Facebook Live comment section. Paige Harley asking, #HeyJB, can someone please tell me about Alexandria, Louisiana? And I believe that Alexandria, I believe that we have a station there in Alexandria, and that's right smack dab in the center of the state. Still the worst to come as far as Alexandria, Amanda.
Yeah, Alexandria is going to stay on the western side of the storm. So this is a loop over the past 30 minutes, but obviously the center is going to get a little bit closer to you as it moves toward Baton Rouge, but then it's going to recurve away from you as it moves toward Jackson, Mississippi. So you're going to stay on the western side. That's good news. That's going to be the weaker side of the storm. You're not going to see nearly as much rainfall accumulations. You're really not going to be in the isolated tornado threat, but you're probably going to feel sustained tropical storm force winds, maybe between 40 and 60 miles per hour for a short period of time, at least late tonight.
How about this one here from Hannah, from WGNO's Facebook page, Hannah Rain Coffee, #HeyJB. I have family that didn't evacuate in Kenner. Prediction for the next 24 hours. And Kenner is in one of those trouble spots, Amanda, as far as being on the dirty side of this system, right there near the heart of southern Louisiana, the heart of New Orleans.
Yeah, so we've been talking about New Orleans a lot, obviously, right? The anniversary of Katrina, how this storm compares, how it doesn't compare to what Katrina brought to the New Orleans area. Now, if the levees hold, and they should, they have been re-engineered, they have been rebuilt in the past 16 years, and the engineers say that they'll be able to withstand the storm surge that Ida is bringing to the New Orleans area. If the levees hold, and we really aren't dealing with any storm surge, the biggest threat for that area specifically is going to be those sustained winds in the strong tropical storm force range. So maybe between 60 and 70 mile per hour range of sustained winds and some very heavy rain as we head in through the next 6 to 12 hours. And then conditions will be improving as we head into the 12 to 24 hour range.
A live look here at Houma, Louisiana, where KXAN's David Yeomans is reporting from, or has been reporting from. This is the camera shot that they currently have up there. And again, whipping winds here. Just imagine what this is going to be like here in the next couple of hours. We were talking here about movement speed. Amanda, how much are we expecting Ida to slow and drop just tremendous rain and continue those sustained winds and wind gusts there in coastal Louisiana?
Yeah, so it's moving about 13 miles per hour right now. I expect it to slow down maybe about 3 to 5 mile per hour more as it makes its way onshore. And again, obviously that means longer impacts for those folks that are in the path of the storm with a slower forward motion there. But again, just remember those maximum winds are going to be weakening as it moves ashore later on tonight and especially into tomorrow. We're going to see it drop from this Category 4 status down to a Category 2 pretty quickly with winds of about 100 miles per hour. And then it's going to drop to a Category 1 and a tropical storm as we head into late tonight and early tomorrow morning as it passes into southern Mississippi.
The next location we have up here as far as the meteorologist Q&A, use hashtag AJB, hashtag Amanda. We can get to your comments here. WGNO's Facebook page up next. Agnes Tedder, hashtag AJB. An interesting location here. How will Killian fare? And Killian is right there between I-10 and I-12. West of Lake Pontchartrain and west of Metairie and New Orleans there, and it seems to be in a particularly vulnerable spot just because of the fact that it's right there on the lake. So for Killian here, Amanda, what do we say here for the commenter?
I really wouldn't rule out the sustained hurricane force winds, maybe between 70 and about 90 miles per hour for a brief period of time, but that's really not going to be until later on this evening. So between about 6, maybe 9 p.m. for you guys, because again, the forward motion is going to slow down. So for that area, wind speeds in the hurricane force range, not out of the question. Certainly some flooding likely with the heavy rain being steady, very heavy rain, steady for several hours. You're going to pick up probably between 10 and 15 inches of rain. So watch for the localized flooding, and isolated tornadoes are possible as well.
We are going to be wrapping up this particular stream here in just a moment. Let's see if we can check in with David Yeomans here for a moment.
And social media live stream. We've been here all day as we await the approach of Category 4 Hurricane Ida, and just now things have really started to pick up here on the roof of the parking garage. Let me start from the beginning. Just about an hour ago, Ida made landfall as a high-end Category 4 just southeast of here with sustained winds of 150 miles per hour and wind gusts up to 180 miles per hour. This makes it in a tie with Hurricane Laura in 2020 and a hurricane back in the 1800s for the strongest storm to ever hit Louisiana. Again, a three-way tie, including this storm, for the strongest to ever hit the state of Louisiana. What we're about to experience are winds much worse than what we're seeing right now. Just a few minutes ago, we actually saw one of these power poles. You see the wooden power lines over there? Power poles, I should say. You see how they're swaying. One of them emitted this loud buzzing explosion and a large flash. We call that a power flash. And that can either happen when the lines themselves are getting stretched or broken from the poles moving, or more likely they can happen when a large tree or tree limb falls on a line and does the same thing. So when that happens, power outages are beginning. We obviously have no way to monitor the power outages during the day here on a concrete parking garage, but you know what? Look at the stoplight over there, Frank. It looks like we have now lost power at the stoplight. So it looks like power here is going out in Houma, Louisiana. And look at the power lines back here by the building. The power lines are just swinging freely in the air. With power lines moving like that, you do not want to be anywhere close to that at ground level or close to those power lines. Now, as we monitor all these visuals, small tree limbs breaking, some wind gusts that I've measured myself over 50 miles an hour, likely stronger away from the walls of the parking garage here. We're also hearing this incredible noise, and I wish the microphone could pick it up. But in the direction of the eye of the storm, out here over my shoulder, it sounds like there's an airport doing jet engine tests, and there isn't. The sound that we're hearing, you know, people say a tornado sounds like a jet engine. This is the first time I've heard this in the 8 hurricanes that I've been in. It's like a constant jet engine test right here. And what that is a combination of the winds that we're already seeing here, but also the winds that are about 8-9 miles that way in the eye wall of the storm. This is a tough storm to stand in right now, but this is absolutely nothing compared to what we're gonna see here in maybe 10 minutes or so when the outer part of that eye wall arrives. Now, I've been in touch with one of the nicest police officers I've ever met, Lieutenant Theriot. Met him yesterday. He was nice enough to even share some dinner with us that he was cooking for his officers here in Houma. And I checked in with him a couple times today. Said, how's everybody doing? You know, about 50% of the residents here have stayed behind. They've ignored the mandatory evacuation orders, including somebody next door we talked to. I'll tell you about in a second. I said, how's everybody doing? Have you gotten any stress calls? Are people changing their mind? They wish they left? He said, so far, David, everything is going okay. They have not had any emergency calls, but he also said that they have told people now proactively that they're starting to prioritize their calls, which means if it's not an absolute emergency, they're not going to put themselves in harm's way by driving out to that call. They're only going to come for serious emergencies, and surely when the worst of this eye wall arrives, they won't even be coming for those. Now, I told you we spoke to a homeowner who decided to stay home. It's a gentleman whose house has been here since the 1930s, and he lives there with his wife and is with his adorable lab dog, who was a little nervous, a little antsy. And they've decided to stay home because he said this storm has withstood every test since the 1930s when it was built. This house, rather, has withstood every storm since then. It's built of thick, heavy cypress wood. He was convinced he would have none or minor damage to the home. Now, I sure hope he's right, and that heavy cypress wood is a strong house, but you know, when you've got a high-end Category 4, even well-built homes can sustain serious, significant damage. So I did make sure that he and his wife, and his dog, of course, do have a safety backup plan just in case things do go south. That would include going into the center of their home. They have a hallway with a bathroom. They've got some flashlights and water there ready to shelter just in case they need to. Now over this way, you see the strips here in the parking lot starting to rip up a little bit. This is not the pavement itself. You know, we've only seen asphalt peel up from the pavement in 300-mile-an-hour winds like the Gerald F5 tornado. So this is not pavement ripping up, but this is some stripping, some patching in the parking garage. You can see another reporter there at the end of the garage holding some down, it looks like. This is starting to peel up. And again, this is nowhere near the worst part of the storm that we're gonna see. So if we're already sustaining some minor, you know, surface damage here in the parking lot, you know, you wonder what it's gonna look like here in a little bit. As far as storm surge flooding, that's a big concern here close to the levees in Louisiana. We haven't seen any. You know, the roadways have some minor flooding, street flooding from heavy rain, but we haven't seen any ocean flooding. Now, the official National Hurricane Center projections say that this area might be buried under feet of water, depending on how exactly the storm moves, and that may still happen. We've seen some footage coming from small communities down near the coast, where I would not be right now, of the ocean overrunning those towns, and those whole towns going underwater. So we're certainly thinking of the 20 or 30 people in places like Grand Isle whom we've heard have chosen to stay behind. We sure hope they're okay tonight. So as we await the eye wall itself coming from that direction, we're going to enjoy our last few chats with you guys up here. Once the worst of the storm hits, these 60, 70 mile per hour gusts will skyrocket to potentially 150 miles per hour, even inland where we are right now. And there's absolutely no way that we'll be able to stand out here. We'll be on a lower level of the parking garage, sheltering behind some concrete walls. We do look forward to showing you how bad the storm gets, though. We'll be here reporting for you. All of our gear is charged and staying dry. So we appreciate you following the storm with us here, whether you live here, whether you live back in Central Texas, or whether you just enjoy the weather. We'll continue to bring you guys the latest from here in Houma, Louisiana. I'm meteorologist David Yeomans with my photojournalist Frank. We appreciate you guys watching, and we'll check in here in a little bit.
David Yeomans there for us, everybody. KXAN's chief meteorologist, and David doing, of course, just a bang-up job as far as explaining what it's actually like right now there in Houma, Louisiana. Back here with you with meteorologist Amanda Holley here, folks, and we're going to be stepping away here for just a moment to take a break here in just a little bit. But Amanda, before we do here, and again, always taking questions from our Facebook Live audience using the hashtags on your screen. Amanda, why don't you just kind of reset for us? Let us know, for folks just tuning in here a moment ago, where is Ida and where is it the worst at this moment, as we continue to talk more about this landfall event occurring there in coastal Louisiana?
Yeah, so landfall occurred just before 1 p.m., I believe, Eastern time. It was about 12:55 Eastern time in Port Fourchon, and maximum winds were at 150 miles per hour. They went through the eye, which got really, really calm. That's the center part of your screen there. Winds really aren't gusting at all. The sunshine is shining in that area, right, as well. And then they're now on the back side of that eye wall, so they're getting the even stronger winds in Port Fourchon right now. Now, off to the north of that, Golden Meadow that you see there at the top of your screen, they're in the eye wall as well. Remember, that's where the strongest winds are being felt, right around the clear part of your screen. So you've got the eye, which is the clear part. You've got the eye wall, which is the strongest part of the storm where those maximum winds are being felt. And Golden Meadow right now at the airport is reporting gusts well into the 80s. So yeah, conditions going downhill, and that's, you know, the winds. Not onto, obviously you're dealing with, on top of that, the very, very heavy rain, the blinding rain, and the storm surge in that location as well. We can't, unfortunately, show you some of the video that is floating around on social media because it's a lot of storm chasers that are out, and you know, they have placed cameras here and there, and they license those, but you know, the water has come up. That's really all I can tell you at this point. And it's rough. The winds are blowing in the coastal locations. New Orleans specifically, seeing those sustained tropical storm force winds between 40 and 50 miles per hour, gusting into the low 60s. Probably going to get a little bit stronger than that in the New Orleans area. The heavy rain is going to be pretty steady from here on out in New Orleans, and the gusts may get a little bit closer to the hurricane force strength in the 75, 80 mile per hour range. But I expect most of the hurricane force range winds to stay out of the New Orleans area.
We're going to be here live for just another 10 minutes, of the final 10 minutes on this stream here. So we're live throughout the day here, folks, on Tracking the Tropics, whatever app, website, social media platform that you're watching on right now. We're taking your questions in a meteorologist Q&A, bringing you the latest from our camera crews that are down on the ground there in coastal Louisiana, portions of the northern Gulf Coast. We're going to be taking a break here at about 2:30 Eastern, 1:30 Central. But let's just take a few more comments and questions. We've been live now for 2 hours, but let's take another couple of questions and comments here from our Facebook Live audience that's been waiting patiently for us to get to some more of the questions and comments that have been rolling in here in the Facebook Live comment section. And hashtag HJB, hashtag Amanda from Junior Lopez. How do you think it will affect Carthage, Mississippi? And, you know, I have to just kind of remind myself as to where exactly Carthage is, and it's a small town northeast, Amanda, of Jackson, Mississippi.
So, you know, Jackson, Mississippi is going to be near that area where the eye comes through. We're going to be talking about a much weaker storm at that point when it comes through tomorrow, but, you know, the Carthage area, I'm just looking on a map here. So you're in the very smack dab central Mississippi, and you're going to be making, as Ida passes by your area, you're going to be dealing with some flooding because you're going to see a lot of rainfall. It's not going to move through very, very fast, so it's going to be a longer lasting event. So some heavy rain for a sustained period of time, certainly. And the gusts into the tropical storm force range, certainly not out of the question, between 40 and maybe 55 miles per hour for the Carthage area of Mississippi. And watch for those isolated tornadoes in those outer rain bands. We saw an outer rain band kind of push off north through central Mississippi just a couple of hours ago. Excuse me. those rain bands are going to get a little bit more steady as we head into the overnight hours.
Let's get to this next comment here. Prairieville, Louisiana. Alicia Nicole Anderson. Hashtag HeyJB. Hashtag HeyAmanda. What about Prairieville, Louisiana?
And Prairieville, I believe, was just outside of the Baton Rouge area. Tonight is going to be, this evening is really going to be the worst for you guys in Prairieville and the Baton Rouge area. So you're going to experience the hurricane force sustained winds, probably between 75 and maybe 95 miles per hour, maybe even a little bit higher than that, not out of the question. So the wind speed is going to be a big factor for you, especially if you're not in a really sturdy structure. The heavy rain and localized flooding, certainly a problem for you, but we're not looking at the storm surge threat that far inland, and the isolated tornado threat will continue through the evening hours.
How about this one from MDG Natasha from WGNO's Facebook page, asking here about Upper St. Martin there in Louisiana. What do we say here for the commenter joining us from WGNO's Facebook page, Amanda, in that's, of course, the television, our sister station there in New Orleans.
Yeah, so you guys are a little bit going to be quite a bit closer to where the center is. Yes, you're associated with the New Orleans area, but you're a lot closer to where the center is going to pass by. So I'm expecting the much stronger winds for the St. Martin, Louisiana area. Actually, I'm going to go back on that. I'm re-looking at the map here, and you're actually on the western side of Baton Rouge, closer to Lafayette. So you guys in the St. Martin, Louisiana, are going to stay on the western side, which is going to be the weaker side of the storm. So you're not quite as much rainfall going to accumulate in your area, and the wind speeds will probably still be gusting well into the tropical storm force range, kind of getting close to the hurricane force range of the 75 mile per hour range.
How about this question coming in here from Donna? Donna in our Facebook Live comment section here, and asking hashtag HeyAmanda, what category is it now? So category 4 right now, correct, Amanda? But here's the thing. It's likely not going to be a category 4 storm for that much longer.
It is still a category 4 storm right now. It made landfall as a category 4 with maximum winds of 150 miles per hour. And it's still sustaining that at this point. We got a 2 p.m. advisory in just 23 minutes ago. So that's, still a very valid update from the National Hurricane Center. And I just want everyone to know that the southern section of Louisiana, all of these little outcroppings, it's very, very shallow. A lot of it is marshy ground. So that means water is kind of overtaking that land as well. And it's warm water, so it's allowing Ida to maintain that strength farther inland. I believe David Yeomans called it the brown ocean effect, and that is what it's called. It's just very hot water in the marshy areas that allows Ida to sustain this strength even farther inland than otherwise would.
Reina Piazza, hashtag HeyAmanda, how is it in Slidell right now?
Slidell right now, you're actually experiencing a pretty good band going through just south of the Slidell area, and can't rule out some isolated tornadoes in these outer bands. I don't want to underestimate that threat. The tornado warning that we were tracking earlier for the Fairhope, Alabama area, that has expired, so that's good news, but the threat for isolated tornadoes is still very much ongoing. And because you're kind of right on that open body of water, you're going to experience some strong gusts. I don't think that you're necessarily going to experience the sustained hurricane force gusts, but a tropical storm force gust between 40 and 50 miles per hour, not out of the question. And the heavy rainfall threat, a big one for Slidell as well.
All right, folks, we're going to wrap up here, folks, on Tracking the Tropics for now. A brief break here, just a brief break, whatever app, website, social media platform that you're watching on right now. We're going to take a break from answering your questions here. We're going to send things over now to WGNO, their coverage there. They're currently in the middle of a press conference. Of course, these press conferences so important as far as getting vital, potentially life-saving information out to people. So we're going to send things over now to WGNO. Actually, that press conference just wrapped, but let's send things over to WGNO. For folks that are unaware, WGNO, the sister station here of us here in Tampa at WFLA, that is Hank Allen's station, Chief Meteorologist Hank Allen, who just joined us quite a bit here on Tracking the Tropics, many episodes. That's the station that he works at, and he's currently in wall-to-wall coverage there at WGNO, so let's send things over to them there. You're watching now WGNO in New Orleans, Louisiana.
After Mack